Ma'am, you're inaudible.
Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you for today's session, which is MBA in Healthcare Marketing. At the outset, I would like to introduce to all of you who are here for the first time so that you know what we are talking about. Is founded by me and my partner, Lakshmi Anantanarayan, who is also there on the forum today. We are healthcare professionals and we have been in this industry that, there is a need for connecting the young pharmacists along with the industry professionals so that they understand what are the different verticals that are there in the healthcare industry and what kind of opportunities are available in the industry. With this endeavor, we started platform in March 2021, and we are here to support young pharmacists like you who are in the forum today, to decide, understand what the different functional areas are, and also decide on your career decision based on complete knowledge instead of a trial and error method. So as a part of our series, which is InFocus, which is an educative series on pharma verticals, which we have started a few weeks ago, today we thought that it is very important that we talk about MBA as higher education, because we are at that and you are waiting for the next academic session to begin. Some of you would have completed your graduation and trying to figure out what to do next, and deciding on what choices are there for you. So this session today will be a guide to you on the various aspects that MBA offers to young graduates like you. We have a very distinguished panel here today, which who will take you through the entire application process, and they will probably answer most of your queries. And in case any of you have further queries on anything about MBA, you can always take this up, which has not been answered, take this up in the question answer session that we have at the end of the session. So with this, I would start the session for today and welcome Ms. Shweta Jaishankar, Mr. Shikhar Saxena, and Ms. Vishaka Srinivasan for this forum today. I will let these young young people introduce themselves and give a overview of what is the kind of work they are doing before we start the chat today. Over to you, Shweta. We'll have Shweta going first, followed by Shikhar and then Vishaka.
Hi, thank you. I'm Shweta Jaishankar and I work with Boston Consulting Group. Currently working with a whole lot of clients from financial sector to IT services to consumer goods and more recently even healthcare. Prior to this, I did my MBA in SP Jain, Institute of Management and Research. Incidentally, as part of SP Jain, I was also, sorry, I think there is...
No, I think there is a recording going on, sorry.
All right. I thought there was some disturbance. So prior to this, I was with SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, where I did my MBA. And incidentally over there, I was also part of the admissions committee. So I've seen both sides of the world. The side of the world as an MBA aspirant who is pretty unclear as to how to, go about this process, as well as on the other side of it, which is basically with, the admissions committee as to how do we shortlist CVs, how do we do group discussions and various interviews. So very happy to be a part of this initiative and happy to take any questions regarding this.
Hi, I'll go next.
Thank you so much, Shweta.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Shikhar Saxena. I currently work at Flipkart as a product manager. And I completed my MBA from the Indian School of Business last year. So I currently manage returns. So if in the last 1 year you have tried to buy something from Flipkart and not been able to return it, I might be at fault there. That's one thing. Before that, I was working as a software engineer. I worked as a software engineer for 3 years, and then I went to do my MBA. Other things about me, I love playing football and I like to read. That's a couple of my hobbies. Yeah, very happy to be part of this session and help anyone in any way I can. Yeah, thank you.
So I guess last for the best. Just kidding. Hi, I'm Vishaka Srinivasan. I'm currently in Mumbai. I will be joining my MBA in a few weeks at Columbia Business School, which is part of Columbia University in New York. So while I have gone through the application process for the MBA, I have not yet started the MBA, unlike Shweta and Shikhar here. I have almost 5 years of work experience in the biotechnology industry. I worked at Amgen, which is a global biotechnology company, mostly in the informatics team. So I worked a lot with researchers, clinical trial managers, and other technologists to help enable them achieve like technological solutions to research problems. I studied computational and systems biology at UCLA, which was my undergrad. So while I don't have a pharmacy background myself, I have a lot of work experience in biotech and have gone through the MBA application process myself. So hopefully I'm able to offer some insights along with Shikhar and Shweta on how all of you can proceed post your undergrad or a graduate journey.
Thank you so much, all of you. And a warm welcome once again. We'll start this session today with Shikhar. If you can tell us, this audience, because they are all young graduates, Shikhar, if you can tell them what exactly MBA is, and why should somebody do an MBA as opposed to, say, a specialization in the area of where they have graduated. What is the difference?
Sure. Thanks, Geeta. I will give my take on that, and I would request Shweta and Vishaka to add in too. So
Yeah, sure.
basically, an MBA is a program that is structured towards enabling individuals to take correct business decision and succeed in a business role in any company they join. What is important in an MBA is that you understand how a business works and what is important for a business. So what basically, if I have to cover what that for me, an year of MBA, for another college, or 2 years of MBA, it's an year of learning where you learn a couple of things. According to me, the two most important things that you learn is that first is that you understand how to solve business problems. So you need to understand, okay, this is a business problem, and basically the approach that, okay, this is how I should go about solving this problem. That would be one thing. And second is, it teaches you the very basic fundamentals of how to run a business or how to analyze a business. This could be as simple as looking at a business financial statement of some companies, understanding doing some data analysis, okay, what is happening well, what is not happening well, and plus understanding how different companies are functioning. For example, we know last year that in the last 3 to 4 years that Jio has suddenly come into the telecom market. Why did they come? So what was the thought process? What was the strategy behind this? So these are the things that you learn, you understand in a MBA program. Now, what is different than this, and why do people choose an MBA program? One very straightforward answer, and I think that is important for everybody, is that MBA is one of the ways of career advancement to get a better pay. That is something each one of us do look at. But is it the only way of getting that? No. So, as I had worked prior to MBA as a software engineer, I had couple of options. I could continue being a software engineer and grow in the tech field itself, which I was working in, or I make a switch and get to the business side of it. Now, it is important at that time for all of us to understand where our interests lie, whether you are interested in actual implementation. So as a software engineer, I might be actually implementing the code, or as a business manager where I would have to see, okay, what are the things that I need to solve for. I'll take an example. So quite a decade back or so, Tata built Nano. So there were a huge technical team who were actually involved in making the Nano. But why to make a Nano? Which segment? Who will be using the Nano? That realizing that this is a problem for a lot of Indian individuals, Indian mass, that they cannot have a vehicle for 2 lakhs or above. Identifying that problem and making the decision, okay, this is something that we need to make, would be something a business manager would be taking a decision on. And it is interacting with people, it is doing market research. So that is a kind of work I at that point was more inclined towards doing than strengthening my technical skills. Both these routes would perhaps have been beneficial from a salary perspective, but yeah, in the end it is where my interest lied. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely answer, Shikhar. Thanks for this. Shweta, and if you'd like to add something.
Yeah, I think Shikhar broadly covered it. Just one or two things I wanted to add is that, when I faced a very similar kind of a question when I, just before doing an MBA, between whether I should do a master's specializing in the area of study that I was in, which is finance economics, or whether I should do an MBA. And just like Shikhar had mentioned, typically I've seen a lot of management and strategy type of roles go to people who have done an MBA. So if you are very interested in skill sets which are more to do with, management, wherein you want to go higher up the ladder, or if you want to take into, strategy type of roles, typically MBA is what they look at more than, a specialization in your own role. So that's the reason why I took an MBA. Anything that Vishaka would want to add?
Yeah, I think both of you covered the essence of it. I just wanted to maybe offer the biotech side of things in that perspective, where an MBA is more like a generalist degree versus a master's degree, which is more deeper in your specific field. So after pharmacy, say you go in for a master's, then the kind of roles you could go get at a large biotech company could be specifics in the clinical pharmacology and modeling and simulation department, as an example. But say you want to actually eventually in your career be leading a product team that brings a new drug to the market, you will have a lot of inputs into making such a decision. There will be people from regulatory, from operations, from marketing, all informing you on the data they are collecting and what it is that needs to take this drug from the research stage and into the commercial market. An MBA degree in which you would have classes in managerial economics, like financial accounting, marketing, will give you the full rounded perspective to be able to understand what these specialists are telling you and make an informed decision on what to do next with, is this product worth launching or not? So I think it depends on the kind of career path, like the other two has said, you want to take in your field, and whether you're trying to progress more on a specialist route or a general management route, and do more of the strategy and decision-making sort of work eventually in your career. So that would be the difference. Yeah.
I think that has really been a very good opening to this session. I think you guys have covered quite a bit. Then my next question leads to, from this first question only, like, I have seen a lot of people saying that, you are cut out for MBA, you're not cut out. Of course, basically there is an interest. Obviously, you will not succeed in your role, whichever you're taking. But besides that, there are certain inherent qualities which are, required if you have to be successful after completion of an MBA. And, not all of them can can this panel throw upon some such qualities which each of you think, one or two qualities that are very required? If somebody doesn't have it, maybe they can develop it if they are looking at MBA as a career. Yeah, Shikhar, or yeah.
I think there are three primary qualities that usually institutes look at, and that should come across in either the CV or the profile questions that you answer. when you're applying to such schools. So the three things that come to my mind is, number one, they see your problem solving skills. And when I say problem solving skills, it means like how analytical are you? So they might give you a case and you would be asked to, solve it during an interview. Or it could be even like they are checking your academic background and seeing how good are you in certain subjects. So the first and foremost problem solving skills comes to my mind. That's the first one. Second one would be anything got with communication. I think usually polishing your soft skills will really help, because they do test that quite a bit in both your written communication as well as the way you speak. So that would be the second one. The third I would suggest is anything got to do with leadership qualities, because ultimately you need to stand out. So is there anything that you have led, during your stint in your career, or in school or in college, wherein it says that yes, this person has proactively led something and done something to reach a particular goal? So I think these are the top three areas that you should really get together in any of the series that you write to an institute.
Okay. Any of you, Vishaka or Shikhar,
I'll just
would you like to add to this?
Slightly different view. So, whatever Shweta said, that's exactly correct, and very practical as well. I have a more idealistic answer towards this. That communication, I agree completely. If it's succeeding in a business role, communication would be perhaps the most important thing. But other than that, I think your attitude is all that would matter in getting the skill sets that in the end would be required. If you have the right attitude and the right interest, you should be able to cross the barriers which are required. And yeah, that's about it. I think the attitude matters.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any qualities per se. What I will say is that you have to make sure that at the time you're applying for an MBA, that is the right career move you want to make at that particular time. Because as you know, people can get an MBA at any point in their life, whether it's a normal MBA, a part-time MBA while working, or an executive MBA. So you have to be able to really justify to yourself what kind of program it is you're applying for and why you are fit for that program, and why now is the right time to be applying for that MBA, and sort of where are you right now in your career, and what kind of roles or jobs are you targeting after the MBA, and how will the MBA program get you from point A to point B. So it's a really like introspective process when you're applying to business schools. So if you have that clarity in your head of, okay, now is the right time for me to do this MBA, I think you should be able to convey that nicely in your applications.
Okay. I think that is a very good advice from all of you. Rightly said, at what point in time should I apply, whether it is today or a few years later, or maybe while I'm working 10 years later, do I look for an MBA? So there is a mixed advice, particularly in students here and the pharmacy colleges in particular, that when we are completing our graduation, that is when you have to start applying to MBA and get into the programs. There is another school of thought where they say, you have to work for a few years and then, couple of years, and then get into an MBA. Any advice from the three of you on that?
So I would give my take on it. Especially in the Indian business MBA school market, there are these two approaches. We see a huge chunk of students who actually, as soon as they have done their undergrad, they go for the MBA. That has its own pros and cons. Whereas the other bucket is people who work for a couple of years, then they go for their MBA, which also has their pros and cons. So I myself was more inclined towards the second approach, where you actually work in a company and understand how a business works to a certain level, maybe to your domain. Try to see. So, for example, I was a software engineer. I understood how things in the software domain work, and then observe other people who work around me. I observed sales team from a distance, marketing, the product manager. I had discussions with him. That time allows you to understand what you want to do with your future. Whereas, so maybe I could have come to the decision after working for a year or so that MBA is not the thing I want to do. That kind of clarity requires some time and maybe certain level of work experience. And that work experience is also, I would say, useful in your MBA program as well, because you come in with some insights on how companies function. But having said that, I have a lot of friends who did directly join after college, and they are very successful in what they're doing today. So yeah, that's my point of view.
So, Shikhar, I want to ask, since you said there are some friends of yours who today would be interested in knowing that, what is the kind of entry level jobs that they have got if they have gone in without any experience? Because I think that also significantly matters.
Got it. So there are the people who join in with less or no work experience after college. There are a lot of management trainee roles. For example, Aditya Birla, be it one. There are a lot of companies like Unilever, PNG, who the purpose is they test you on your very basic skills of how you communicate, how you analyze things, and for them your background is not of very much importance because they're taking you at a very entry level, and they will train you. Maybe they have a program as such that they have a 2-year program. They'll put you 6 months in finance, they'll put you 6 months in sales, where you will actually learn how the business grows. So that environment is also there in the Indian market, where management trainee roles are there. Having said that, these roles would be available more in schools such as IIMs, perhaps, and rather than ISB, where I come from, where there's quite a bit focus on experience, and people from lesser work experience have lesser opportunities compared to the other colleges in India. Yeah.
Oh,
I think I have a slightly different point of view on that. So I studied in SP Gen, where we had both freshers or people who are straight out of college, as well as experienced folk, and the starting salary and the kind of rules were similar for both, because at least the way we saw placements was that each profile was seen in silos. So if you have very strong academic background and strong backgrounds in terms of the competitions that you've won and things like that, then you will still be able to ace as a fresher that is just out of college. Having said that, I think personally I felt there was quite a bit difference in the way I appreciated a few things while doing my MBA. So I appreciated a few concepts better because I was not coming from a theoretical notion, but I had also worked for 2 years, so that really helped. It also gave me quite a lot of clarity as to what kind of roles I want to do in future versus not want to do, which again my fresher folks did not know of, and we had to guide them. But having said that, there is enough and more guidance given to all those people who are straight out of college. And at least in my experience in SPGen, we didn't have any such method of giving different placements or different levels for people who are straight out of college.
Okay, that actually helps a lot of students. Yeah, Vishaka?
I can speak from the overseas perspective because I only applied to business schools abroad, not in India, where work experience is actually a really critical part of that application. Most people have a minimum of 2 years of work experience while applying to the school. So by the time they are admitted into the school and start the program, it would be 3 years, while the average being 5 years of work experience, which is what I have. For a lot of reasons, like Shweta and Shikhar mentioned, which is you'll be able to get more out of the program if you already have some work experience. So when they're talking about case studies and making you analyze other companies, like Shikhar took the example of Nano or Geo, you will have some work experience and practical knowledge, having held a few roles or worked with a few organizations to be able to really break down the problem and offer a unique perspective. Remember that your MBA class, no matter where you do it, is going to be very diverse. So although you might have pharmacy background, You will be with people who are software engineers, financial professionals, athletes, musicians, all sorts of background people come to an MBA program. So to be really effective and contribute to the discussion, you need to, it really helps if you have work experience and have a perspective of your industry or your particular role to be able to contribute to class discussion, and also to navigate what kind of roles you're best suited for after you graduate from the program. So especially if you're looking at overseas work experience and overseas MBA programs, I would say work experience, whether in India or somewhere else, is quite critical to your application.
Okay, thank you all. Now that comes, I think now I get into a little more about, the choice that one makes in terms of an MBA program and the application process later on. So I know that there are a lot of choices within India, and there are choices overseas also. So if this panel could touch upon what are the kind of choices, we will get into the application process for each as the next step. But at least if this audience gets to understand what are the choices, because I think we do have some from the third year who still have another year to go. So, if they know that what are the kind of choices are there and how does one research for these universities or colleges, it will be very helpful. Yeah, we'll start with you, Shweta.
Yeah. I think broadly, before getting into the various types of MBA, I think I'll just give a little bit of brief as to the courses which are there in India. There is a 2-year program which is usually PGDM, that is what they call it. There is also a 1-year program which many of these schools, like even Shikhar School, ISB gives. Apart from that, there are also various other programs that you can look up. There is one on for women who have just completed their maternity, they want to get back and they want to step change, then there is a specific women program also, as well as entrepreneurship MBA programs for anyone who is starting a business, wherein it is far more practical. So half of the course is on building the business and half of it is on theory. So both the practical and theory aspects come. So these are the 4 types of programs that usually in India we see for MBA. And I think for this audience, it would be better to talk about the first 2, which is the 2-year course and the 1-year course, because I'm guessing most of you are, fresh out of college. If I had to talk about these 2 courses, I would categorize into 3 buckets. One is the IIMs who are very, very high, overly indexed on the CAT score as well as your academic background. So that would be the first bucket. The second bucket is all those other schools which also look at your profile. So in that, I think both SP Gen as well as ISB comes. ISB also, if I'm not wrong, has a young leader program, and I think Shikhar can talk more about that. But that comes in the second bucket. And the third bucket is all your XLRI and many other schools which have a completely different, admission process, completely different way of evaluating. They don't go by CAT. So these are the 3 broad buckets of schools, and that's the way to categorize it usually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Shikhar, you would like to add anything to it?
No, I think that classification covers it well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Vishaka?
Yeah, so again, when it comes to thinking of an MBA, obviously you have choices in India, but you also have a lot of options overseas. Most of the abroad programs are 2 years, with the exception of Oxford Said Business School, which is a 1-year program. So the countries Indians can look at is France, which has HEC Paris, Spain, which has IES, the UK, which has London Business School, Oxford, Cambridge, a lot of them being 1-year or 2-year programs. There's also programs in Singapore at NUS, SMU, or NTU, Hong Kong, which has HKU, Hong Kong University. And of course, all the many schools I'm sure many of you are aware about in the United States and Canada, which are traditional 2-year MBA programs. The application process for abroad programs, from what I understand, is completely different from the tests that are taken in India, which, as Shweta mentioned, was the CAT. For abroad programs, mostly it is the GMAT, but there's also schools are beginning to accept the GRE scores. And so I think when it comes to selecting the program, whether it's India or overseas, there are a lot of factors to consider, which is how long is the program? Where would you like to work post the program, because it's always easier to find employment opportunities work in India, then probably it makes more sense to do the program in India. There's also the question of language barrier. So if you choose any European country, say Germany or France or Spain, you might need to pick up the language, because although the classes will be taught in English, all the colloquial social activities that go with the program may be in a foreign language. And then, of course, there's the affordability and how far you want to move, etc. Personal factors that go into choosing where exactly you want to do the program. And then based on that, the first decision is what will go into the application process, which is the test scores, the essays, recommendations, and the amount of work experience you plan to have before applying to the program, because they're all very different. And I'm sure we'll...
Yeah. So I think with this background of what this is, can we quickly, Shweta and Shikhar, first go through what is the application process in India? If you can just, segregate them as, the standardized scores and the other elements of the application process.
Shweta, would you cover the CAT and
Yeah,
Zach?
sure. Yeah. So the first part of the entire application process is just it will be helpful if you first understand what are the colleges you want to target, right? If XLRI is one of the colleges, then you would have to be cognizant of the fact that XLRI has a completely different test that you will have to take. If you want ISB, then ISB also takes GMAT. So just doing that little bit of search and understanding what are the top schools you want to, shortlist, that will help. That's the first step. The second step is, just ensuring that you take certain tests like CAT and GMAT, and XLRI's test, that is ZAT. And the way to do that is, just going to some kind of a coaching school, or not necessarily attending their classes, but at least a few test series, just to get a hang of, what are the kind of questions that can come across in these tests that come to you. That will be very helpful. And I've seen people crack it in a matter of few months, while some people take a lot of time. So it will be helpful if you just take, early on, at least 1-2 tests to kind of gauge how you're doing before understanding how much you would want to put in as effort, right? So that is in terms of just the application from a test perspective. Once the tests are done, you will also have to individually apply to each of these schools. So each one of them will have a form that you have to fill and submit. And then according to your scores and your profile, they will give you a call. So each school has their own form. Some of them are very basic, like the IIMs. Most of the IIMs had very basic forms, hardly any questions, which were, in a paragraph or an essay type. Whereas there are schools like ISB and SPGen which do ask, quite a lot of profile-based questions, because that's the way they actually, are certain whether you are fit for them or not. So once that is done, you would then get a call post the scores also coming. And then there is the entire interview process, which is basically you have 2-3 rounds. The first round is majorly a technical round that they have, which is just to understand you as a person. If you mentioned any technical abilities, then they question you on that. They give you certain general questions or JK questions and understand how do you know certain things that are happening around the world, and so on and so forth. So that's more of a technical round. The second round varies across the board. So at least in SPGen, the second round used to be more of a culture round to kind of give you various emotional or various dilemmas that you could face, and how is it that you would solve it as a person. So they just test you on you as a person in SPGen. That might be different for other institutes. In IIMs, there was no second round. As I recollect, there was just one round, which was a technical round. So that's that.
Between Shikhar and you, Shweta, mainly based on colleges in Mumbai, any other thing that is to be considered?
Correct. I'll just elaborate on the first point which Shweta had mentioned and answering this question as well. That at this stage, for most of our audience here, understanding what colleges to apply for is the main point. There are several different colleges
Right.
in India, in Bombay itself, of different categories. So you need to understand their process well. What do they stand for, and what is the objective of those MBA programs? So there's a Tata's management school as well. So they have quite a high focus on a bit more on the social sector. Then there are yeah, so there are then there's a MBA program which is more for technical fields. I'm forgetting the name. It's in Bombay itself. So you need to the first most important part is get a good understanding of what all are the different MBA schools and options for you in India or abroad and in Mumbai, and where do your interest lies there. That your interest would be one factor, and second would also be what is the requirement of the college. So why that becomes important is that sometimes as Shraddha mentioned, the high focus of IMs on CAT scores make it not a very reliable option. That, for example, if you don't get a 99.5% plus, you cannot get in these colleges. So that would require immense amount of effort to go in with I would say not a guaranteed amount or guaranteed result coming out of that, and you would have to put in significant amount of effort there. So see what are the requirements of the college, what you want to go into. So colleges, as Shweta had mentioned, ISB and even SP Chain, they do look at other things also in compare. Even the Tata's school, they see what your profile is, what your inclination is. You have to write you have to write a letter that why do I think I should be joining your college. So you can give your thought process of why I as an individual will contribute to your college, which while this might not be there in some other schools. So this set of information is very important at the start of your journey towards towards the MBA journey.
So if I specify ISB, Shikhar, can we say that is there a standardized test and an essay? These are the two elements. That's it, or anything else?
So there would be three elements. The first, as you said, the standardized element, the standardized exam. That is, you can give a GMAT or you can give a GRE for getting into ISB. Then there is you have to give your essay. That is one thing. And the third thing is basic your profile on what you have done till now. So as Vishaka touched upon, one thing which is important in ISB as well is a variety. In my batch, I had doctors, I had engineers, I had musicians also. So that is something which is a focus in a school like ISB as well. I did have colleagues who were from pharmacy background as well. So yeah, that does help having a relatively diverse background and which will play into your MBA application.
So do you also have group discussions and interviews?
So at ISB, after your application, if you're shortlisted, you would have an interview process. Yeah, that's about it. We do not have group discussion.
Okay.
So I'll quickly touch upon the overseas application process, which is quite similar to ISBs, I'll say. There's a few components, which is, your personal statement and profile information, like the other two I mentioned. There's so you have to have clarity on, what your job goals are, because you have to write an essay about it and your previous experience as well. Then there's, of course, the test scores. And so I saw a question in the chat on, can you talk more about the GRE? So lately, a lot of US and Canadian schools are accepting the GRE as a standardized test as opposed to the GMAT, which was formerly the more common test required for business schools abroad. You have to do your research on which schools exactly accept the GRE, because it's not all of them. And a lot of it is changing even during COVID, because it's an easier test to administer. So it's about 3.5-hour test that tests your verbal skills, your quantitative skills, and it's adaptive. So based on how you do in one section, the next section might be tougher or less tough. So again, like the CAT or the GMAT or any other test you have to take in India, it requires quite a bit of preparation. it is a test I took to apply to Columbia Business School as well, because I think based on our Indian education and the focus on math, the math section is actually quite easy on the GRE, and it's the verbal that I had to focus on more based on our Indian education system. Also, the test is more applicable. Say you change your mind and don't want to do a GMAT, but you want to go in for a specialized master's program, then the GRE is the same test accepted for those programs as well. Like they mentioned, you have to be in the zone and study a lot to get a really competitive score to apply to business schools. So whatever test you're planning to take, prepare for you're in the zone of studying, because the test scores are valid for a few years. Each test is different. So the GRE and GMAT, for example, I think are valid for 5 years. So if you just take it and be done with it, even if you're not applying for the programs in that year, at least you're done with the test aspect of the application and can maybe later on focus on others like the essays and recommendation letters. So that's the other thing. You'll also need recommendation letters for applying to schools, and you have to, in your professional experience, make really good contacts with your managers or mentors, or really start thinking about who will be able to vouch for your personal skills and professional skills to be able to recommend you to the schools that you're applying for. So overall, the next steps are usually the same. Based on your application and competitiveness of it, you might be invited to an interview. The interview can either take place with an alumni of the school or someone from the admissions team itself. So that's how I had to interview. It was just one round of 1 hour interview I had to do, and then you'll be either accepted or not accepted into the university. So that's about it for that question. And I encourage everyone to keep putting in questions into the chat as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, because I think all of you, 3 of you have covered most of the aspects. And if somebody needs any clarity, we would request them at the end of this session, if you can put it in the chat, or, open your video and ask the question also. Now, before we move on to the next step, I want the 3 of you, because you have finished your graduation a few years ago and now completed your MBA, working or getting into MBA, what is the kind of advice that you would like to give to these students when they're in the final year of their graduation? Yeah. And Shweta, can you start?
Yeah, I think now that you're in the final year of your graduation, I think as a first step, it would be good if you start looking at various institutes and shortlisting them. Usually, I would suggest the way to shortlist the institutes of your preference is, number one, do see the rankings, especially in India, they do matter. The best of placements happen in the top few ranked institutes. That's number one. Number two, also go through their placement reports. See whether, the kind of places that you want to work in are coming to those institutes. What is the kind of role? Because even if they do say that XYZ company does come, is it in the preferred role is something that you should definitely cross-check. So do a lot of reading on the placement, 2, the ranking, 3, also try to understand how the environment is over there. And usually the way, I would suggest is there are a lot of these blogs like Inside IIM and so on and so forth, which kind of gives you an insight as to what is the life in that campus. The reason I'm laying so much of an emphasis on environment is because these 2 years, you get to learn so very much that just having the right environment might just help you to enrich and learn a lot from that experience. So I think that's another thing that you should definitely look at to, then shortlist the kind of institutes you want to be a part of. And then after that, once you're done with shortlisting and understanding what exactly is, required, start working on at least these test series, right? Whether it is for CAT or GMAT or GRE, I cannot stress enough on the fact that you should already start off because the earlier the better, right? You will understand where you stand, whether you have to work hard or not for it, and then there is no regret about it. So just start, working on the test series and seeing which kind of institutes you want to be part of.
Yeah, I'll just
Thanks.
add
Thanks.
one thing. At this point, what would also help is a little bit of self introspection, seeing where your I've mentioned this, but repeating it again once, that see where your interest lies. Before jumping into the MBA, it is a rat race. I won't lie there. In India, it will be a rat race if you're applying in India. Outside also, it's not easy. So before, because once you have committed to it, you should commit to it 100%. So before committing to it, make sure you want to do this. Your interest lies there, because once you have committed to it, you'll be able to give it your all. Two minds wouldn't help you ki thinking ki, "Arey, I should do a master's in something else, or should I do a master's in MBA?" Get that clarity first. If it requires you to get some work ex, get that. Once you have clarity, then you can proceed, as Shweta had mentioned, on the different things. Yeah.
Yeah, so similarly, just to add on Shikhar's point, there's also different kinds of MBA programs in India, as Shweta had mentioned. But there's also specialized MBA programs, which Jigita will talk about in a little bit, that might be better suited for pharmacy students. So try to think about, do you want to go for a generalist sort of MBA and just be like a generalized professional, or do you want to go for a specialized MBA because you're targeting a very particular role in the business side of the industry that you want to work in for the rest of your career? That will inform you early on itself what kind of jobs to get out of undergrad, what kind of work experience to get, and what kind of research. While you can read how much ever you want on all the various blogs, I would also really encourage reaching out to people who have done the program, who are alums of the program, or working in the kind of roles that you think might be interesting to you. Just these coffee chats, asking those experienced professionals, what do they like or not like about their day-to-day lives, what did they get out of the MBA program, how did they go about choosing the program, whether it was in Mumbai or outside of Mumbai or overseas, the environment being a very important factor. Just understanding more and more people's perspectives will help you build your own as well. And then, as the other two mentioned, get started on the test series, because you'll have to take a lot of practice tests, and you want to do that when you have the time to be able to focus on it and are not being maybe overconsumed by a full-time job, which you will have to make time for studying anyways, but you want to give yourself ample time to prepare for these tests.
Okay, thank you so much, Shweta, Shikhar, and Vishaka, for this great advice to youngsters here in the forum today. Now, before we move on to the question answer session, which we will request the audience to put in the chat box so that our panel can answer that now. I would like to just take about a few minutes in talking to these students today who are, specialized pharmacy students. I myself am a pharmacist, and I have completed my MBA, years ago. And, the kind of MBA which was offered in those days was just a general MBA. We did not, I think there is a question in the chat box also with reference to that. We didn't have a specialized program, etc. Now today, when I'm talking about MBA for students, we have a lot many options, like, Shweta had mentioned. You have a 2-year program, you have a single-year program, you have executive or part-time MBAs, etc. Now, coming to the healthcare specific MBA, we have a lot of programs in Mumbai itself and other parts of India also, which are having healthcare specific MBA. Now, how is it different from a general MBA and a healthcare MBA? In a general MBA, basically, which is talking about, say, the operations, the finance, accounting, you're talking about HR, you're talking about marketing, and you try and learn about stakes, and complete what you will need when you enter the business side of the company or the organization. Now, what does healthcare specific MBA means? Healthcare specific MBA is going to cover most of these, but with a very specific focus only on the healthcare aspects of the industry, or of the industry. Like, for example, it will talk about hospital management. It will talk about, say, advertising in the healthcare sector. It will talk about, what does marketing mean in the healthcare business. It will talk about retail pharmacy. It will talk about that is coming into. So, it will be, every study that you are doing will be focused on just that healthcare. Is it good to do it? Is it not good to do it? I mean, we can't say yes or no. I have my own reasons to say that, a general MBA is preferred, but there are reasons which also say healthcare MBA is not so bad. Now, while you're looking at these different programs, I think Shweta mentioned a very, very important point, saying that, which is the university or college that you are getting into ranking. Instead of using the word ranking, I think I will just say that you have to get into a program or an institute or something which is of repute in the industry. Today, there are hundreds of colleges which are offering, even in Mumbai, the MBA programs. Will I be the same if I get into an MBA program like that just to get an MBA degree with me? Or is it important that I get into one of the colleges where Shweta or Shikhar have gotten into in India? Or where Vishaka is going overseas. If you're looking at very premier institutes, you have a lot of hard work to be done, and it is important that you get into premier institute to get a head start in your career. It's not enough that you just have an MBA degree and you say that I have an MBA, I will look out for a job. Doesn't work like that, because even the healthcare companies are looking whether you are suitable for their company in taking the business ahead. So getting into good college or university should be your prime concern. And then next step is, whether you want to do the general MBA or the healthcare focused MBA. That entirely depends upon your interest. When it is a company which is looking, say, a healthcare company like, say, Cipla or Sun, when they're hiring graduates, will they look for a general MBA or a healthcare MBA? It is immaterial. They would generally, big companies prefer general MBAs. They do not prefer healthcare focus, because it is important that somebody comes with complete knowledge and not with biases of a particular industry, so that you are able to deal with others. So they have their own pros and cons, like this panel mentioned. And if you have more queries, we can answer specific queries, but this is what now the kind of jobs that you can look at when you get into the market. And after an MBA as a pharmacist, you can get into, there are various options. Traditionally, only people talked about sales, and but today there are very many options where they require a domain knowledge. And as pharmacists, you will be able to have that domain knowledge and succeed in wherever you're going. So the options could be in the consulting business, like what Shweta is. And I would request Shweta to just touch upon a few words after that on what healthcare consulting would be in a company like BCG. You also can get into insurance business. You need domain specific knowledge for people, to talk about insurance, etc., which is becoming a very big thing with that Ayushman Bharat becoming this thing. Insurance is going to be a big industry in our country in the years to come. Then you also have something called as healthcare finance, where you manage businesses like private equity or venture capitalists, where you're trying to assess, as an analyst, you're trying to assess what is the company. Is it a good company, a good company where somebody can invest their money in and for it to become big. So these are there are so many options, and in all these options a domain knowledge is something which is very, very important. And this can add value, so you don't need to look at just a healthcare MBA. You can do a general MBA as well. So this is what we wanted to discuss today. And Shweta, if you can just quickly touch upon a little, then we will give this forum to the question answers.
Yeah, surely. What we do at BCG is we deal with corporates as well as the government, as well as non-profit. And the kind of projects that we do is, for corporates, it could be any pharmaceutical company, or it could be hospitals, on how exactly, what should their 5-year strategy be? How should they improve their costs? How should they implement, even for this COVID period itself? We have done a lot of things on just building healthcare resilience in the healthcare systems, both with corporates as well as the government, various state governments as well as the center. And also, we've included the non-profit organizations like Bill and Melinda Gates and many other organizations, which kind of like, how exactly can we use them to, improve the healthcare system. So I think that's what we do.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much, all of you. Now I think we'll take questions from the audience. And Kritika, can you start with the questions?
Yes, ma'am.
I think, yeah. So there is this question, which is GRE question. I think we have answered. Does that, what is it to get a confirmed eligibility as an MBA student, both in India and abroad? That's a question that has been asked.
I think we already touched on a lot of that, which is, your personal qualities as well as the important aspects of the application, like the essays, the test scores, recommendation letters, etc. The next question was, I think, will doing a pharma MBA benefit or general MBA? I think, Geeta, what you just mentioned covered that as well. How should a fresher prepare for group discussion and interviews? Shweta, I don't know if you want to take that, since your batch had both freshers as well as.
Yeah, before that, there's one question on PGDM or MBA. I think PGDM is MBA only in India. So most of the courses, whether it is by SPGen or IIMs, they call it PGDM. So you can just look that up on Google. It will be mentioned. So it's the same, at least in India. On the other question, okay, for group discussions and interviews, I think a couple of points. So when you do enroll to any of these coaching institutes, they themselves give quite a lot of practice, on group discussions as well as interviews. So you should definitely try that. Apart from that, I would also suggest, just looking up some of these blogs. At least it helped me. I used to be a very regular reader of Inside IIM, and I used to keep looking at the various experiences that, people have. Just reading up their experiences will know how exactly they have approached their interviews, and you could also mentally prepare for them. So yeah, these two would be the approaches I would suggest.
One tip.
Sorry, go ahead, Shikhar.
One tip for the interviews could be that, so as Shweta mentioned, right, go through the previous year's questions, because in the end they have some set of questions which they ask in different ways again and again. But there will be a different variety of questions also. And you need to talk to yourself that, okay, what is the answer I would have given to this? And then think that, okay, if this is the answer that was given to me, what cross questions would I have asked? And try to answer each and every cross question that could come to your mind. So you're completely prepared. Okay, I have said this. What all could they ask? And I have an answer to each of them also. So that is what will ensure that you are exhaustive enough with your interview preparation. Yep.
Yeah, so touching on that, don't make sure you go through every line of your resume as well, because at least when you're applying overseas, maybe the case for India too, they can question you on all the nitty-gritty details or words you mention on your resume, which might not strike you as something that you would be questioned on, but the interviewer can really pick on anything. So if you're not able to elaborate on any of the bullet points, just don't include it. The other, like Shweta did, I also read a lot of blogs and researched a lot of questions, to prepare for my interview. Another thing I did was actually record my answer so I could play back how it heard to myself. Was I stammering? Was I forgetting any points when I was actually speaking? Was I taking too long to explain a concept? And how would the interviewer perceive the answer? Was it well rounded? So when you play that back, maybe just record it on your phone and listen to it yourself, how much ever it might hurt to hear your own voice. It really helped me to prepare for the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other question I thought, this audience may be interested is, generally, everybody says that you need to have a good, awareness, your general knowledge should be good to make sure that you are answering, the interview properly or the group discussions properly. Particularly in India, I think people stress on that. How far do you think that is important?
So I will answer only from the ISB. So I had also prepared for the other ones. I think at least in some of the IIMs, it's very important. In XLI also, it's quite important. In ISB, the questions for your interviews are just focused at understanding what you have done till now and what you want to do and why you are the right candidate to say that you want to do this. For example, I in my entire application had said that I want to go into product management. So my interview was completely focused around what I understand about the field, why I think I'm right for that, and how an MBA would help me do that. General knowledge questions or things like that aren't a part in a ISB interview experience. Yeah.
Okay. Shweta, any advice on that?
Sorry, I think I missed that question because of a patchy internet network. What was the question?
No, basically, people do say that you should, when you go for interviews, you should be very good in your general awareness. You should be reading a lot of current affairs, etc. So how far do you think that is very critical for interview or GD preparations?
Got it. So I think general awareness in the areas that you've mentioned is important. I had mentioned a lot of economics and finance. So I was definitely quizzed on, what is happening around in the world. So whatever you are taking up, and what are you up to date with all the terminology that you've mentioned? If there's a new research study in your area of expertise, then definitely they will want you to not just tell what is happening around the world, but also tell your point of view. So they would want to see, whether you're adding on to something that is being mentioned, or you're just going with, someone else's opinion. So that is something that definitely gets missed.
Would you like to add anything, Vishaka?
I think that was mostly covered. So, for example, I mentioned I came from a biotechnology industry working in technology within biotech. So my interviewer was not from that field at all. So had to explain what my role was and what my work experience was in very layman terms to somebody that might not understand those particular terms or what exactly it is I did for today at work first, and really explain, where my role fit into the sector, who the competitive companies were, and what that landscape looked like. So I wouldn't say it's general knowledge in the sense that anything can be quizzed on, but definitely a lot of specialized knowledge in what exactly you're interested to do post MBA and what you have done before the MBA, in your job. You should be not just about your own role, but understand that industry and be able to answer high level questions about it, whether it's in your country of residence or around the world.
Okay, I think that was a great session that we had. Do we have any more questions here? Otherwise, I think I think we have covered most of the questions. So maybe, we can end the session for the day. There is one question I think which has got missed, which is what are the different fields in MBA and what are their roles? Shikhar, would you want to just touch upon that?
Sure. Different fields would be, so I am guessing when we say different fields, are the different specializations. So basically the main specializations would be strategy, marketing, finance. So strategy is basically so now before I get into what these are, I'll give a brief about what is the purpose of these in an MBA school. So for example, I have done a major in finance and marketing. Now, this is something I did because these were fields which didn't have much knowledge about, and I wanted to learn more about marketing, more about finance. And yeah, so that was my perspective of why I've taken these major roles. And so your subjects which you choose will be in a way tied to these. So if I've taken finance, I have studied on how you value companies, how financial statements are there, their growth, and things like that. So that is one kind of specialization. Others would be marketing, then there's strategy. But the point I want to drive is that these do not in an MBA college determine what kind of job will you get. You can take some kind of majors as per your inclination, as per your interest, and you might get a job which is slightly different from that or completely different from that. The kind of role I am in, that does not in a way contribute. There's not much contribution from the mainstream these roles, be it finance, marketing, strategy. A little bit of everything is there. So yeah, that is my perspective, that these are the major fields in MBA. There's also certain smaller ones, like there's IT, then there's operations, which again you should select based on your interest. Yeah.
Thanks, Shikhar. I think there is one more question which I missed out. I think I will answer that question about can we suggest some good colleges in Mumbai for doing an MBA after a BPharm course?
Just 1 second before we get into the answer. I know Shweta has another commitment, so just wanted to thank you so much for your time. Shweta.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really glad
to
be a part of this
Shweta.
Discussion.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, and I hope this was useful, and definitely if there's any other question, you can always answer it offline.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in today. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. So what are the good colleges in Mumbai for doing MBA after BPharm? See, all the colleges that are there under the Mumbai University, all of them offer MBA for everyone. So specifically for BPharm students, there is no specific college. Now, I do not want to say this is good or this is not good, but you have colleges which you have Jamnal Al Bajaj, you have Wellinger, you have Somayas, you have NM Institute, you have SP Jain from where Shweta was, you have, these are the colleges which offer management courses. And there are also colleges like SIES, colleges like Somaya, colleges like Wellinger Institute, Vivekananda also, I think, offers specific courses as healthcare MBA courses. Now, you just for you to decide which one you want to do. This is offhand. These are some of the colleges that come to my mind right now to let you know about the colleges. So I think that we have covered, Pritika. I think we can close for the day today. And if there are any questions, they can always write to us.
Yes, ma'am. I would, on behalf of platform, like to express a sincere thanks to our panelists, Ms. Shweta, Mr. Shikhar, and Ms. Vishakha, for taking the time to address us and for giving us such a great preview of the details of MBA education. I also would like to express my thanks to all the participants who are at this forum today. It is my request if all the participants can turn on their videos so that we can take a picture of the session.
Just give me a minute. Okay.
Thank you. We would also like to update you that we at Platform will be coming out with our next capsule on clinical research and regulatory affairs in the pharma industry and the career opportunities for pharmacy students. So we request you to please watch out for the link and register yourselves for yet another session in our InFocus series. And if you have any further queries, please do write us at connect@platform.in. And please follow us on our social media pages for updates, news, and posts. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. I take this opportunity to thank you, Shikhar, for being with us today and explaining to this audience about the nuances of how to go about the MBA education. And thank you very much, Vishaka, as well, for being in with us today and give your view on MBA if somebody wants to, look at overseas. Thank you so much. And thanks, Pritika, for hosting the session for us today.
Thank you so much, Shikhar and Vishaka.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you to Platforms for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.